My name is Daniel Moore. I work for Microsoft Solution Accelerators. My team just released the beta version of Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter. I have Suveen up here with me. He's a colleague who works with me in Solution Accelerators. He's assisting me in my old age. My wife says I'm not able to multitask. And after all the years we've been married, I guess she has a credible opinion on the topic. But more importantly, I have too many pairs of glasses. I can't move back and forth between the computer screen and visiting with you folks without getting terribly lost. So he's going to do a bunch of the on-screen stuff for us today while I focus on talking to you about what's going on. So first, a moment about Microsoft Solution Accelerators. Most of you, or many of you, will have used Solution Accelerators in the past. We're a group that focuses on making it fast and easy for you to deploy Microsoft technologies. Lately, we've been focused a lot on helping our partners and customers with virtualization and migrating to Microsoft's private cloud solutions. Examples of this would include Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. Now includes capabilities related to helping you understand your environment's readiness for cloud migration, what requirements you might need to get there. Microsoft's Deployment Toolkit is about enabling your environments in an automated way, and Security and Compliance Manager is about helping you establish your security and compliance baselines. With the most recent version of Windows Server and Hyper-V, we're seeing tremendous excitement for folks who want to take a look at Hyper-V. Either they want to evaluate it or experiment with it or even migrate to it. So to assist with that, we've just been working on Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter, which will help customers who currently have VMware machines they'd like to migrate to Hyper-V. And like all other solution accelerators, they're free from Microsoft. They're fully supported by Microsoft. If you're interested in learning anything at all about solution accelerators beyond the one we're talking about right now, visit Microsoft.com/solution accelerators. So I was just visiting with the speaker who had the session before me, and he said, try to be human. And it's a little weird to do that. You got big bright lights in your eye, everybody's sitting a little ways off. I'm supposed to be very credible with regard to the message I'm delivering and be human. So I'll do my best. One main thing I'd like from all of you is if you've got something that you're curious about, a question that you have, please pop up to one of the mics. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, in addition to being visually impaired, I'm hearing impaired. Also, they're recording the sessions, so they'll be available for others online after MMS, and they don't really hear what you're asking about if you don't talk into one of the mics. So please step up and talk about anything that is on your mind, and we should have plenty of time to take your questions. Simply put, MVMC is a utility that allows you to take VMware virtual machines and migrate them to Hyper-V virtual machines. Nothing more, nothing less. One of the things we believe is truly effective about it, however, is that you can use it from within System Center automated workflows. It has a command line interface, which can be invoked from PowerShell. It can be invoked from within Orchestrator runbooks. And it also is a completely standalone utility. So if you're in an environment where you don't have System Center deployed, you don't have Microsoft management capabilities deployed, you can still install this in your environment and convert a VMware machine. All you need is a Windows Hyper-V machine to deploy the virtual machine onto. One of the things we were going for was fast, simple, super lightweight. We understand that customers who've already made a big investment in other technologies find it incredibly painful and expensive to go explore other things. So we wanted to find a way to give you an opportunity to evaluate Hyper-V without having to make a huge investment in infrastructure or learning, ramp up, anything like that. So we think that what we've done is delivered something that is super lightweight, super easy to learn how to use and put to work. As I mentioned earlier, there's a wizard GUI, so if you're just trying to convert a single machine, kick the tires, the GUI is perfect for that. If you're in a situation where you're saying, okay, we want to do more than that, we want to start automating workflows, the traditional IT pro isn't very interested in GUIs. They want something they can automate. So we've enabled that as well. You can use again, I mentioned a runbook in Orchestrator. You can use PowerShell scripts. You can use command line. Any of those work. So whatever it is you're using for automation in your environment today, you should be able to make use of the capabilities in MVMC. And as I mentioned, the main point of doing this is to create a quick, low-risk way for you to evaluate Hyper-V if you're considering moving from VMware to Hyper-V. All right, so what are we trying to accomplish? Well, obviously, we want you to understand what's available in the beta right now. The beta bits are out there. You can download them today. They've been out there since Friday, I believe. And we want you to understand what it'll do. We also want you to understand what's going to be available in the RC that comes out in a couple of months, and also more about the roadmap looking forward. Because while we have enabled a number of things that we think are pretty compelling, we have a lot more available on the roadmap as well. This is mainly going to be a demo session, so while we'll spend some time up front talking about what's coming and what's included and that sort of thing, we'll mainly spend time running code, letting you see the demos, with the idea that when you leave here, you should be able to go do them on your own. We believe that it's simple enough and straightforward enough that the time we spend here today, you'll be able to go download the bits and start doing conversions of your own. The first one you'll be able to do is the VMware machine conversion. And basically what will happen here is you'll go from a VMware machine running in a VMware host environment to a Hyper-V machine running in a Hyper-V environment. We're also going to demonstrate some of the command line stuff. Because we have the ability to do either disk conversion or machine conversion, and the first demo showing you a machine conversion, we chose to show you disk conversion with the next one. The way command line scripts work is exactly the same for machine or disk conversion. You simply add the parameters and pull the trigger. The next thing we're going to show you is we built some runbooks in Orchestrator that integrate migration of a VMware machine to a Microsoft Managed Cloud. While we want you to see the scenario, we really don't believe that you're going to walk out of this room if you're not already a subject matter expert or competent with Virtual Machine Manager, System Center Orchestrator 2012. You're not going to walk out of here able to do this one. I have colleagues all week doing sessions on Orchestrator and Virtual Machine Manager and doing labs on them. If you're interested in learning more about those, please consult your conference guide, get into some of those other sessions. We want you to see what can be done, but the scope of our learning here is really MVMC. So, as you know, Microsoft is not the only game in town with regard to offering virtual machine services. There's lots of terminology out there. It means a lot of different things to different folks. The terms are overloaded. We think about conversion. We think about migration. We think about replication. And as we use those terms, what we're finding is that they mean different things to different folks. So we said, let's pick a few words. Let's talk about what they mean to us in the context of this session. And that way, as we go through the session, hopefully we're clear about what we want you to know and what we do and what we don't do. So the first term I'm going to talk about is hot. A hot conversion is basically you've got a machine running. You need to keep it running. You want to build up another machine right beside it. And when you get to the point where you're ready to switch over, it is instantaneous. There's a negligible downtime. The intention is that the users experience no service interruption. Warm. What we mean here is we're going to stand up a second machine beside the first one. There will be a service interruption because we're going to turn that machine off to preserve state, to do operations on it, maybe to do a backup. When we're done, there will be two machines, one on the old platform and one on the new platform. And it's up to the IT pro at that point to decide when they want to cut over. This is usually the proof of concept, pilot, kick the tire scenario. I do not want to cut over until I'm completely satisfied that the new one is doing everything I need it to do. So I can spin them both up side by side when I'm done, do whatever checks or validations I want to do, then I can cut over. Then we have cold. Cold means different things to different folks. In the context of this discussion, what we mean when we say cold is that we'll take offline disks or your disk templates, your disk libraries, and convert them from one format to the other. And that's it. By the way, the green checkboxes meant those are the ones we support. We don't currently support hot. All right, so what we were trying to accomplish, when we build a new solution accelerator, we spend time thinking about, what does the customer really need here? What are the most important things to invest in? Which feature set should we deliver first? Because you can't take it all on, otherwise you'll never ship it. You have to narrow your scope to get the first release out. You say, what are we going to include initially? What will we make the next highest priority? And so what I wanted to do is take a couple of seconds talking about the priorities as we selected them for the beta release. So we wanted to enable a conversion of VMware machines that were created either in a 4.1 or 5.0 environment, and we've done that. One of the things that Hyper-V needs is specific drive geometries that are not necessarily enforced by VMware. So when we do a conversion, one of the things that we do is we do the correction of the drive geometry so that they're compatible with Hyper-V. The other thing that we do is, in the case of Server 2003, for example, you can't get it up and running after the conversion if you haven't uninstalled VMware tools, if you haven't installed Microsoft Integration Services. So those are also things that we do in order to make sure that we get the highest possible number of successful conversions. For the most part, folks who come here are working in enterprise or large IT departments, which means that they need the ability to automate things. As we went out and started talking to customers about what we wanted to do here, they said, yeah, the GUI wizard is neat, and we really appreciate the fact that you did that. But if you don't also enable scripting and automated workflow, you're really going to hurt us. We need you to do that as well. So we have done that, and you'll get an opportunity to see more about that as we get further into the presentation. So if any of you have spent any time at all with conversion capabilities, you'll know that some of them are built into something bigger. In order to use the conversion capabilities that live inside of System Center, you need Virtual Machine Manager. And Virtual Machine Manager is really intended to do a lot of things beyond conversion. And for folks who are just trying to learn about Hyper-V and evaluate whether or not it's the thing to do, they don't want that. They want a small footprint. They want something that they can figure out how to use in 10 minutes, not something that they have to buy a book to figure out. And they want something that is easy to move around and easy to play with and easy to throw over the side if it turns out it's not what they wanted. So that's really things that we were trying to accomplish as well. Finally, when solution accelerators chooses a path, we're saying this is an area we want to invest in. We stay the course. We don't build it, throw it over the wall. We take the space on seriously with a year-over-year commitment. We're saying, okay, we need to enable conversions for the customer base going forward. We release what we release. We'll rev it over. We'll probably release about every 6 months. And the reason we'll do that is because there's I think we've got about a 2.5-year roadmap right now already talking about capabilities that we'd like to include going forward. So in addition to having continuous updates based on customer priorities and evolution of technology, we will also have ongoing customer support, forums, help desk, all the normal channels for Microsoft support. All right, so with machine conversions, we're basically doing or with disk conversions rather, we're doing a sector-to-sector conversion. What that means is if you've got anything in a VMDK format and you use the disk conversion capabilities in MVMC, we can convert it to a VHD format. Makes no difference what OS you're running, none of that makes any difference. It will perform that. The problem is that when you go to mount that disk or deploy it onto a hypervisor somewhere, if it's not an OS that's capable of figuring out its own driver situation, it's not going to boot unless you do other steps. So you can convert a Linux, you can convert a Unix, you can convert anything you want to convert using disk conversion capabilities, but we're not solving the drive fix-up problems with disk conversion. That's something you do on your own at this point. With machine conversion, on the other hand, our intention is to get the machine up and running in the Windows Hyper-V hypervisor when we're done. We'll actually have that machine running and on when we're done with the conversion. Unfortunately, what that means is that we have to take on whatever it means to make that machine boot in a driver-agnostic circumstance, because obviously when we do the conversion, we really don't know anything about the hardware environment that you intend to deploy it to, and don't have the ability to magically install or create whatever drivers exist for that. So we have to do something around integration services or self-healing OSs. Becomes a pretty big test matrix pretty fast. So what we have to do is we have to pick the OSs that we're going to start with initially, make sure that we've got those ones working, that we're doing the driver fix-up for them, and incrementally over time add other OSs based on the priorities that our customers tell us they have. Right now, in the beta, you get what's in white. Server 2003 SP2 is fully supported. Windows 7 is fully supported. Server 8, or 2008 R2 is supported. When the RC comes out in a couple of months, you'll also got 2008 R1, and you'll get Vista. So there are two ends of the conversion process. There's the source where we pick it up, and there's the destination where we deploy it. From a source perspective, we're supporting ESX, ESXi, and the disk types that are listed here are disk types that we'll successfully convert for you. Destination, today we'll allow you to deploy on a 2K8 R2 SP1 hypervisor. I know that's a mouthful, but that's the most current server version that's available out there right now. We also support VHD fixed and dynamic. Again, for beta, or for the RC, we're adding some stuff. So we'll pick up the prior to SP1 version of 2K8, and we'll also be deploying onto Windows 8 hypervisors at that time as well. Already in our labs, we're deploying successfully onto Windows 8 hypervisors, and we're supporting VHDX support. It's just not hard enough to release yet. So that's coming soon. All right, so the point of a wizard is to make something incredibly easy for whoever's going to use it. So you don't have to understand all the mechanics, you don't have to do all the heavy lifting, and it can be fairly painless to go make use of it. As IT professionals, however, we still want to know what's going on behind the covers. It's not enough to say, fill out these 3 forms and everything magic happens. It's what's going on behind the scenes. So we put together this slide with the idea that we could help you understand what we're doing behind the scenes as you're using what we believe is a very straightforward hypervisor, or a fairly straightforward wizard. So in the context of the wizard, there are 3 points on the map that we think about. The IT operator has got MVMC installed somewhere. In a lot of instances where we've played with it, it's actually installed directly on the Hyper-V host itself. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we're saying 3 spots. The IT operator is working from their machine. There is a VMware host somewhere that they want to go pick up a machine and convert. There's a hypervisor or a Hyper-V host somewhere that they'd like to go deploy it to when they're done. So in this world, basically, the wizard is saying 3 things. Tell me what you want to convert, tell me where you want to put it, and push the go button. So what's actually happening is you go out and tell MVMC, here's the host I'd like to look at. You provide the logon credentials. It returns you a list of the machines that are available on that host. Then you say, here's the machine I want to convert. At that point, we perform some checks. A VMware host has information about what machines exist and what OS is installed on them, but that's something that was entered by an administrator. It's not something that is available as a result of directly interrogating the machine. And so while somebody said, yeah, this is a Windows 7 machine, we still need to go look to make sure. We want to do the work necessary to make sure that that's a machine that we can convert before we start the investment of actually reserving space to write disks and performing all the conversion steps. So we'll interrogate that machine. We'll figure out for sure what OS it is. Is it something we currently support from a conversion perspective? What does it need from a resource perspective? How many processors, how much memory, or how much disk and storage space, and so on. Then we go look at a Hyper-V host. Again, this is step 2. You simply say, here's the Hyper-V host I'm interested in. We'll take a look and make sure that there's enough space and enough resources to receive the VMware machine when it's converted. And then we'll start the conversion process. So for us, there are a number of ways that this is done. And we know that there are other converters out there. And we know that they take different approaches to doing this job. The approach that we've taken is this. The first thing we do is we take a snap of the VMware machine. We want to make sure that no matter what happens, if the process gets interrupted, if it goes awry in some way, you have the ability to revert back to the original state you started with no matter what. So that's step 1. The next thing we do is we remove VMware tools. We shut down the machine, and then we copy the disks over to the work environment that we've set up for that purpose. Once we're here, we're simply going to start rewriting that disk into the new format that is supported by Hyper-V. In the case of a 2003 server, we're also going to inject a run once registry key that will inject integration, that will start the installation of integration services the first time you start the machine. Now we've got the disks in the new format. We copy them over to the Hyper-V machine. We automatically provision a new Hyper-V machine based on the requirements of that particular machine. We'll attach the disks, start the machine, and the only thing that's left is to clean up the workspace where we've got a VMware copy of the disks and a Hyper-V copy of the disks. At that point, it's done. So we feel that we've done a pretty good job of creating something simple that will make it possible for you guys to take a look at a converted machine if you wish. So we're going to start doing some demos now. And so I'm going to hand my clicker to Savine, and he's actually going to get into some running code. And while he's doing that, yeah, please.
You mentioned that you copy the disks over to the VMC machine.
You're right. I failed to talk about something. We do a complete restore as soon as we're done copying the disks. So was that where you were headed with that?
Yeah, and you're going to need as much space as you're copying on this machine that's doing the work.
You're going to need double the space you're copying.
Double the space.
Yeah, because basically what's going to happen at that time is you're going to make a full copy of the VMware disks, and then you're going to create right beside it another instance of the Hyper-V disks. So at that moment in time, if you're trying to migrate a 4 GB machine, you're going to need at least 8 GB of space to work with.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And because we don't want that to spool out of control, we clean up at the end of each conversion. So we erase that. We erase both of those. And I should have mentioned and failed to that as soon as we're done copying the disks over, we immediately restore back to the snapshot so you can restart that machine if you want to. For the purpose of the beta, we chose to leave the VMware machine off as soon as we were done with it because the feedback that we got is the preferred state was off so we can preserve state as much as possible for the purposes of comparison. We've also been told that people really want to choose. Sometimes they'd like it to come on automatically when we're done. Sometimes they'd like it to be off automatically when we're done. So for the RC, you'll have the ability to choose. For the beta, it's just being left in the off state. You have to, but we do notify you as soon as we're done with it. Even though we're still in the business of converting, we're done with the VMware machine. You can go turn it back on if you want. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So another one?
Yeah. Sorry.
It's great that this is a standalone tool. Are there any differences compared to what the conversion with using the VMM 2012 full-blown product would be? Or is this just a breakout of that code from that conversion within that product?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
All right,
I wasn't kidding about being deaf.
Right. So are there instances where this product can succeed or fail, where a conversion using the VMM 2012 would succeed or fail, or is it a one-to-one? Right?
I got the question. So we actually do have capabilities not currently available in Virtual Machine Manager. For example, they don't do tools removal. They don't do the installation of integration services. So the VMM currently cannot convert a 2003 machine. So our matrix is divergent from VMM's plans. And the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that that's not their focus. Virtual Machine Manager's focus is enable management of large farms of Hyper-V hosts and virtual machines. Our focus is help people migrate from wherever they are to a Hyper-V machine. And so one of the conversations that's going on right now between us and the Virtual Machine Manager team is whether or not we should just go ahead and do conversion from now on and manage the single code base. And when you, in the future, use Virtual Machine Manager, you'll actually be getting the exact same code that's here. So today, they aren't the same, and we actually do some things they don't do in the conversion world, but that's not a situation we want to be in going forward.
Right, and you can't say what's going to happen in the future, right, with that. It makes sense to break it out, I guess.
Not if I want to get paid.
All right.
I mean, they'll turn off my badge. They'll do bad things to me. Sorry.
So the question is, how do you handle the mapping once you go from VMware to Hyper-V, such as network mapping? What adapter does it use?
Right. Okay, so there are several types of mapping that go on. With regard to NICs, the version that we are releasing right now doesn't actually do your NIC mapping for you. It doesn't do. Once you have a machine converted, you need to open Hyper-V and assign whatever NICs and IP addresses you want to it. We don't do that for you. One of the, we get into a mess when we start thinking about replication or recreation of IP stuff. If you are not committing at the beginning of your conversion to replace and pull down your existing machine, we cannot assign the machine name and IP address to the new machine, otherwise we're creating a network collision. So we took the easy way out with the beta release. We said we're just not going to do it right now. We are aware that there are people who actually want that capability. NIC management is in the RC. We have a few things in the backlog for the release candidate, and the ability to configure NICs is possible. So what will happen is if you assign the same machine name and IP address to the conversion machine when you convert it, it will come online and start as the new instance of that machine. We will have left your other machine in an off state. We won't allow you to turn on both machines at the end of the conversion if that stuff matches. But if somebody tries to restart that other machine, you're going to create a collision unless you fix that.
Okay, and how
does that answer your question?
It does, it does. And how do you handle VMs that have more than one disk? Do those get mapped as SCSI disks, as ID disks? Are they on one channel? Or
if the VMware machine has a larger than 2 gigabyte disk that's spanned across multiple files, we pick that up and handle it, no problem. If it has multiple disks, right now, we're only binding to the disk that has the OS on it and bringing that one across. If you want to do disk conversion, you can do that, but that's not handled as part of the automated process today.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, it does. And one final question. How is this process different from, deploying an agent via VMM and running almost like a P2V of a VM within VMware? And is this more efficient than doing something like that?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to be able to say I've done all those checks and I can give you the exact answer, and I just don't know. I do know the write speeds are comparable, the conversion speeds are comparable to doing it other ways, including VMM, including other people's converters. With regard to are there specific optimizations, I just don't know the answer.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else before we get into the demos? Okay.
Quick question. In the VMware machine, if you have snapshots, those aren't, I assume those are not brought over, right?
I'm sorry.
If the VMware VM has snapshots on it, those snapshots will not be brought over to the new.
They will be. I mean,
so you'll
it's
maintain
taking whatever's on the disk, and we're actually doing full hash checks on it before we turn it back on. We want to make sure that byte for byte, everything that was on that original machine is on the new machine.
Okay, so you're maintaining snapshotting between the VMware and
If it was
Hyper-V?
on the disk, it'll make
Cool.
it to the new
All right,
destination.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll continue to take questions as you have them. We're going to jump out of the deck now and start actually looking at some running samples. For the purposes of these demos, we've got something like 6 or 8 machines in our Solution Accelerators lab in Redmond that are running these machines, that are running these demos for several reasons. One is we're running RDP sessions from there to here, and we're trying to manage bandwidth as much as we can. The second thing is we're going to do a cooking show in a number of places. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, if you watch a cooking show, they mix all the ingredients, they put them in the pan, they stick it in the oven, and then they immediately step over to the next oven and pull the finished cake out. And the reason they do that is because it's really not a good use of your time to have you sit and watch the cake bake. Okay, so most of these demos we kicked off a few hours ago. An instance of them we kicked off a few hours ago, so you'd be able to see a finished conversion. While going through the wizard really only takes a few minutes, once we hit the go button, it grinds for a while. The bottleneck on machine conversion isn't the software, it's network throughput. We have found that when we eliminate the network, we put it on a high-speed SAN and use a fiber connection and do things like that, it's incredibly fast. Relatively speaking, I should say. So we're sitting on a 100 Mbps standard network connection here. So converting a 8 gigabyte machine will take 30 or 40 minutes. We don't want to spend your time watching that. So we'll kick it off here, and then we'll move over to a second instance of it where we've already completed it, and you can see what it looks like at that point. So once you've installed Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter, this is what you see. Surprise. This is actually built exactly to the user experience specifications of the Hyper-V wizard in Windows Server, the current version of Windows Server, which I believe we're calling Windows Server 8 at the moment. So if you were in there looking at their Hyper-V wizard and you were wanting to create a new Hyper-V machine, the look, feel, UI, everything would be essentially the same. That way, when you move from here to there, you get a seamless user experience. What you learn there applies here. What you learn here applies there. So the before you begin screen is really welcome. Here are the operating systems we currently support. You hit the checkbox at the bottom, you never see that screen again. So let's go ahead and move to the next screen. As I mentioned earlier, tell it where the host is that you'd like to interrogate. You can put in a machine name or an IP address. It'll resolve either one. Provide the credentials necessary to access it, and it will go out and ping that machine. So a question I usually get right here is, well, can you just browse my environment and look for any hosts that exist? With the beta release, you can't do that. And actually, we're not enabling that for the RC either. You have to know the host you're going after currently. In our future world, we are including capabilities that will allow you to inventory your environment, return a list of all hosts that exist, and then you can access from any of those hosts whatever machines exist. But the interrogation and assessment capabilities are a little bit bigger scope than we were able to get in for this release. So what's happened now is we have interrogated the host. It says we have these 3 virtual machines existing on the host. We're saying, fine, that's the one we want to convert. And we'll select that and move on. Here, I have the ability to either provide logon credentials for that machine. You'll maybe remember in the little build demo, we said we're going to interrogate that machine and figure out what its requirements are and what OS it really has on it and all that stuff. That's where this happens. If your current session credentials have rights to that machine, you can simply say, use my credentials. If your current session credentials don't, then you have the ability to put in different credentials here to access that machine. Go ahead. The question about how much space do I need to handle the conversion, that's exactly what this step is about. Identify a workspace, whether it's on your local machine or SAN or wherever you want to put it, where you have the space necessary to, that double space needed to do that conversion. I've got to copy the disk down, I've got to rewrite a second instance, I need enough space to do that. So that's what you're doing here, saying where do you want that work to happen?
Does that handle DFS paths?
I'm sorry, could you step up to a mic?
Does that handle DFS paths? Network share paths, DFS paths, distributed file system?
Oh, well, our connection work is done via WMI, and then we're doing a standard file transfer work at that point. Does that answer your question?
Not really. So right now I'm seeing a local path, C:. Can I put...
Oh, can you use a network path? I'm sorry, of course, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't getting your question. Yeah, so you can absolutely specify any machine or you could use an IP address there if you wanted to. Okay. And again, the same process for the Hyper-V host. Tell them where the host is that you're interested in doing the deployment. Provide the credentials, and it will default to what it found on the Hyper-V or on the VMware host as far as setting up the disk type. So the machine that we started with was a fixed disk type. It's saying, okay, you had a fixed disk. We're offering you a fixed disk. If you want to change it to dynamic at this point, you can. That's up to you. Okay, go ahead. All right, so warnings is really information. So let's talk about that. You may be trying to deploy to a Hyper-V host that doesn't have the same capabilities as the VMware host you started with. It's not uncommon for someone to have multiple processors associated with the VMware machine, and the Hyper-V machine is only going to support 2 processors. So if you've gotten to this point, we've already said this will be a successful conversion. You can deploy the machine, it'll turn on. What this little window is about telling you what differences will exist when you convert. You had more processors before, you're only going to have 2 now. We are enabling a floppy drive with the new deployment. So if you had a floppy drive on the other one, you're not getting it here. So things like that. They're just communicated to you. And if you look at it and go, oh my God, I absolutely got to have my floppy drive, then you have the ability to bail out now if you wish. From a UI perspective, one piece of feedback we've already gotten is we could really make that window larger. There's all that unused space at the bottom of the screen. And so we're actually going to do that. When you get the RC, you probably won't have to scroll that window. It'll be a little larger, and you can read everything in one shot. Okay? And then we click Finish. So what's happening now is it's starting the conversion. And if you were to sit here and watch it, you would see that it is telling you where it is along the path. It will actually tell you when it's done with the VMware machine. You can go turn it back on if you want. But we're not going to stay on watch. We're going to go over to the other oven and pull out the finished cake. So it's really, really true. This demo really, really ran a little while ago. And it was an exact, so what we've got is demo environment A and demo environment B. They're exactly the same in every regard. And one we just started earlier than the one you just saw. So what we've got here is the completed conversion of a Server 2003 instance. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the Hyper-V machine where that's been deployed, and you can actually see it up and running on the Hyper-V machine as well. So there it is. We can jump into it if you want, look around. But the bottom line is it was running previously in a VMware environment. It's now running in a Hyper-V environment. So the next demo we're going to go look at, any questions about that one before we go on? Something?
Right, so the question I had was, are you able to do multiple conversions at the same time? Say if you were...
We aren't doing parallel conversions. Okay. And the reason we aren't doing it is we have yet to find a throughput environment from a network perspective where it makes any sense. So we can queue them up so they'll run serial, one after the other. But if I put two side by side on the network, they aren't going to end up any faster than if I run one right after the other because of the network bottleneck problems. Okay? All right, so now we're going to look at the command line interface. For this one, what I did is I wrote a little PowerShell script that has some pauses in it and some remarks in it, so in order to more clearly illustrate for you what exactly that looks like. So in this example, you want to convert to the, you want to do a change your directory to the location where the executable lives. At least that's what I do. When you run this command line exercise, it takes 3 parameters. It says, show me where the executable is, show me where the target disk is you'd like to convert, show me where you'd like to put it. And it's executable, space, target source, space, destination, space. Then you hit the trigger, and it begins. That's all you have to do. Now, gotchas with this. If you don't actually have permissions to the location where you're trying to do these things, it obviously won't work. But if you do have the credentials necessary to access those locations, and again, this isn't about logon credentials. This is about folder share credentials, right? Because we're talking about offline disks here. So go ahead and pull the trigger. My wonderful assistant. Thank you. So what's happening right now is it is writing those disks. And again, we'll go over to the other oven and pull this one out completed as well. So you're getting back a report that says really interesting things like cylinders, tracks, sectors, bytes, etc. But the interesting line in this is about 4 lines up from the bottom that says you have a new VHD at this location. And that the source of that VHD was the VMDK file that we started with. If you had a VMDK file that spanned multiple files, because they've got an upper limit of 2 GB, it'll find them all. It'll pick them up in series and do the complete conversion. You don't have to point it at multiple files. Just point it at the first one, and it'll pick up the rest automatically. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to Hyper-V, and we're going to start with the machine that we set up a little earlier that doesn't have a disk attached to it yet. We're going to browse to that location, and we're going to attach that disk. So you'll see the full, take us through to the end process here. So what Sabine's doing right now is he's working inside the virtual machine, or excuse me, the Hyper-V interface. They said, he chose a part that said attach a disk, and he's browsing out to the converted disk to attach it. So he's going to apply it, and we're actually going to go start that machine so you can actually see what the startup cycle looks at like post-conversion. So if we got it right, the machine will start. Pretty gutsy, huh? 10 machine connections to Redmond from here. So far, they're all running. So what it's doing right now is it's doing the installation of integration services, so it'll handle the driver fix-ups. And when this is done, it'll present us with a logon screen. You can log in, and it'll finish up the process. So this one doesn't take too long, so we decided we'd force you to wait through it. If anybody's got a question while that's happening, I'd be happy to take it.
So I have 2 problems that I think this addresses. One is that I actually have some machines on the old VMware server running under Windows, which hasn't been a supported product for a while, and I'm desperate to move off of there. I want to go to Hyper-V. The wizard you ran showed pointing at a vSphere or ESX that I don't have. So my approach would be to convert my disks.
So you have older version than ESX?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're in the classic struggle here, right? Do we go do Zen next? Do we do an older version of VMware next? I mean, so here's what I would encourage you to do, because we're having those debates inside the product team all the time about where to invest next. Join the TAP. You'll see, or you'll join the beta. You'll see a link at the end where you can go sign up.
Okay.
Hit the email link. Tell us what you've got.
Yep.
We listen to that stuff. You know, if you get on there 10 times and say, I got to have the old VMware file support, you push it up in the queue. But if you're like one guy in 1,000, it probably it may not happen, right? I mean, let's be honest. We have to invest where we're going to satisfy the largest volume of folks, right?
Yep.
So, but absolutely join and we'll hear your voice.
Okay. The other question I have is I actually have some machines running Windows XP in a VMware environment. You said 2003 SP2 supported.
Yeah, XP is coming out. XP support arrives with RC.
Okay, great.
Yep. So in a couple of months, you'll have that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Did you finish it? I was talking to someone and not paying attention to what you were doing. Did you see it? Did it start? Okay, good. Okay, excellent. All right, so on to the final demo. This is the one where I don't expect to teach you how to do this demo, to do this conversion capability, because what we're doing here is, you can actually just jump right over into the orchestrator environment if you want. How many of you have System Center Orchestrator? A few of you, okay? Orchestrator is our offering for authoring and managing workflow automation. What we're looking at right here is the workflow authoring environment. I had one of the guys on the team write me some run books that would show this, because we want to be able to say, if you just want to stand it up and stand alone, it works. If you want to integrate it into other workflow automation, that also works. So let's demonstrate that. So what you're looking at right now is the workflow authoring environment, or the runbook authoring environment, and we've got 3 runbooks. So see the 3 little tabs across the top? The runbook that we're looking at, the view that we're looking at, is basically start the converter and then run these 2 runbooks. And so we'll go look at what's in the other 2 runbooks as well. So if you look at log result, so what we're doing here basically is grabbing parameters or variables that we've said we want to ingest for this, and we'll go look at the variables in a second. Start running it and log the results, because if we hit any trouble or it fails for some reason, we want to be able to go back and debug it. So we're kind of purists in so much as pretty much everything we do, we try and add logging to, so we can pay attention to the results. And then the last one is, once you're done with the conversion, go assign it to a cloud that's provisioned and managed by a virtual machine manager. So all that happens in this, if you run these runbooks. Could you go over and open the variables folder under MVMC? So these are all the variables that these runbooks take. You're basically saying, here's my source, here's my destination. It's all parameterized, so if you've got another source of this information, like I ran a map inventory of my environment, now I've got a list of a bunch of machine names that I've determined I'd like to convert, you can create automation that basically rolls those parameters in and runs a continuously automated process that will convert your machines. So the point of this is to show how you can, in fact, automate bulk operations, should that be something that you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this. And when he clicks on run, this isn't normally where runbooks are run from. This is the authoring environment, but we're actually using it because it saves us showing you yet one more interface as we go through all of these. And you'll see it's kicked off. So we're going to go over to a VMM instance now, which I believe we haven't shown you yet. We've shown you Hyper-V and a bunch of other places, but can you get us over to... And my lovely assistant, once again, is taking us to the next cool place. Now, Virtual Machine Manager is designed to manage many Hyper-V hypervisors, and with each of those managing many virtual machines. For our demo, we've got VMM managing one machine, And the idea behind cloud provisioning is I can take the fabric of my many machines and the resources they make available and configure clouds that are comprised of those resources. This is pretty dumbed down, and in this dumbed down state, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'll try and get us through it. So we've created a cloud that is comprised of resources that are available on the machines that this guy is managing, which is one. So the cloud resources really are comprised only of resources that are available on all hosts. So if we go over there and we look at the cloud, or we have focus on the cloud now, you'll see that the machine that we just converted has been assigned to that cloud as available infrastructure. So we've gone all the way from I went out and picked a VMware machine running on a VMware host to it is now a member of a Microsoft managed cloud. Okay? So I think we can get back to the deck now. I wanted you all to have that much in the way of visceral experience of what we could do with this utility in its current state. So let's, you're going to give me this guy back. Oh yeah, you got it, that's great. So, bunch of links here. The ones that I think are probably most interesting to the folks in the room are the MVMC beta. If you hit that, you'll automatically join the beta. You'll have access to the bits immediately, and we are inviting and encouraging you to tell us what we should be doing differently. We've provided an offering that we think is helpful, and if you think so, great. If you think we got something wrong or we need to add something or we're focused in the wrong area, we want to hear that. So please, please let us know what we got right and what we didn't. That MVMC discussion alias is an open alias. You can write to it. We want you to write to it. I'm one of the people that gets email that gets sent to that alias, so please do. Okay, let's keep cooking here. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. Please complete session evaluation. If you don't, they don't pay me. They throw me out. I'm not sure what happens, but it's super important. So please take a moment to do that if you can. And next. All right, stock slide. But right now, we're open to questions, so please ask away.
Would you be able to share that runbook from Orchestrator that you guys have, or is that something you'd expect us
Are
to
you
do?
saying you want the sample runbooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, happily. Send me an email. Just say I want them. You can send it to that MVMC discussion alias. We're happy to share those with you.
Thanks.
You bet.
This sounds like a good way to bring up a Hyper-V sandbox, if you will, of your production environment.
You bet. We envision that occurring, yes.
And you said in the beta version, it does not give the copied machine the same machine name or any network setting. So
intentionally.
So
right, we intentionally don't give it the same machine name because we don't want you to bring it up and have a collision on the network.
I guess it arbitrarily assigns a machine name for it? Or do you get to choose?
I think we did a suffix thing. I'm trying to remember what we did. Like we took the old machine name, truncated it, and added some kind of an arbitrary suffix.
And it's already joined to the domain?
No, we don't assign a network connection
whatsoever
in this conversion. If you want
so I
it
have
to join the domain,
configure
you
the
have to
NIC
go
and
into
join the
Hyper-V
domain.
and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's ready to go. I mean,
Okay.
you could just go into Hyper-V and say, add NIC, here's the IP address.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Please join the beta. Please check it out. Tell us what you think.